And we welcome you back to KCBD Now. My guest today is Tim Siegel. Tim is the co-founder of Hope for Minds. We're talking about his son, Luke Siegel, the legacy he has left behind, the impact it has had on Hope for Minds today. And once again, Tim is joining us by phone, by video from Dallas. Tim, you mentioned you'll be coming in town tomorrow for a special event at Cooper High School. It's a 5K color run. Talk about what's going on this Saturday at Cooper High School.
Yes, this is an annual event that we've had at Cooper, and I'm just so grateful that everyone at Lubbock Cooper allows us to have our run all around the school. It's a 5K. It's a color run, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Right before it gets hot, we'll have food trucks. We have Touch a Truck. In the past, we've had as many runners. Uh, it, it's an opportunity for us to witness for we as an organization, our mission, and I'm just so grateful that so many in Lubbock continues to support us. We had a big event in May, a casino night at the Overton Hotel, our annual spring event for Hope for Minds, and then of course now we have our run coming, and it's not too late to register. Kurt, I will resend you the QR code, but
Okay.
people can register even the morning of the run between 8 and 9. But it does start at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock sharp at Lubbock Cooper High School.
Tim, to do what you do with Hope for Minds and what you've done for the last several years takes money. And you're doing this to raise funds, which you do in various ways. How do you raise your money? How does this organization operate?
Well, that's certainly the one thing that we think about and talk about and focus on pretty much all day, every day, because we want to be able to help as many as we can. Hope for Minds has granted over $300,000 every year, but we are able to grant 3 scholarships or 3 grants, Luke's Legacy grants, to families randomly each month, and we also have an emergency fund. But if we had all the money in the world, we would be able to help so many more families. And so we raise money through different events. What I mentioned in Lubbock, we have a golf tournament in Austin. We had a big event in Dallas with Darren Woodson speaking. And then we certainly have individual donors who can donate. If you go to the hopeforminds.org website, um, we're doing something in honor of beginning tomorrow. Uh, those that would like to donate in memory and honor my son Luke, that'll be going on for the next week as well. But we do, uh, we appreciate so much of not only the community of Lubbock, but the entire country who has stepped up and tried to help our organization, because there is such an incredible need for families with children with brain injuries.
Tim, you mentioned being in 47 states. When you started out with Team Luke Hope for Minds at that time, did you envision that this organization would have the national impact that it has today?
I don't think anyone could have envisioned that. And I think, number one, I don't think any of us envisioned how prevalent brain injuries are among children. That's number one. Number two, the fact that we are in so many states helping so many families each and every day is a credit to, our entire staff. We have social worker, we have a director of development, we have a communications person, we have our executive director, Rhonda Johnson, a director of ops. We have a grant writer. We have a staff because we need the amount of people that we need, and we really need more. We have interns, but I'm just blessed to be around such a passionate group of people that really want to help families. But as you mentioned, you know, when Luke had his brain injury, I didn't know the first thing between traumatic brain injury or anoxic brain injury. Well, I'll tell you this, now I certainly do, and it's just the need is there.
Yeah, you have an education that you never really wanted because of what has happened. Wouldn't that be right, Tim?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about I mentioned the organization being as big as it is. Here's an interesting thought. What would Luke think today as he's seen the impact of that fighting little boy and everything he went through, what would he think about the impact of Team for Hope?
I think that, Luke was such a unique and special little boy. He had such a caring heart. And I remember when one of the moms came up to me and said that Luke had a way of making all of his friends feel like they were his best friend. He was both the sweetest little boy and then a competitive little boy. He loved baseball and football, and but I think Luke would feel proud that that what his father and his family and friends have done to keep his legacy alive. I think he would certainly feel proud. I think he's smiling in heaven. I think he knows that there is so much love and the impact that he makes, and that I will make sure that every single day for the rest of my life that I will do all that I can to keep his legacy alive. And I think proud is the one word I think about, that I'm proud of Luke, and I think Luke is proud of what we've accomplished.
Tim, I want today's program to be a celebration of Luke as much as anything, and not just after the accident, but before the accident. You talk about what kind of little boy he was. He was 9 years old when that accident happened. But Luke was special. Luke was special in just some of the things you mentioned. But the ability to make everyone feel loved and feel important is a special trait that you don't teach your children, but it sure is nice when they have it. But Luke was fun to be around, wasn't he?
He was. I never saw Luke argue with any of his friends. He was easygoing. And the thing that I think about a lot is he loved talking sports with me. From the New Orleans Saints to the Texas Rangers, we talk about Texas Tech athletics. Every time it's football season, I think a lot about Luke, because we'd already be talking Saints and the injuries and the schedule. And, Luke and I made a pact that we were going to go watch the Saints play every year. And we did that for a couple of years. Then the accident happened. And then we went to about 5 or 6 more years worth of football games. And so, Luke was so unique in so many different ways. But I know that when I when I'm getting better at now is when I see pictures of Luke. It used to just tear my heart in pieces. And there are moments now where it warms my heart, that I think about those precious 9 years that we had together, um, before the accident, and then the next 6 after the accident. But, you know, I just know that every day I wake up, I think about Luke, and I know that when I see the number 3, it makes me think of Luke in a better way, in a more positive way. But he was he was so well loved and so well liked by everyone, and that is really rare, as a young little boy.
Tim, let's talk about grief. I know that this could be probably a 2 hour answer, but you, I'm sure, have learned a lot. We talk about the stages of grief and the different things that you've gone through. You mentioned forgiveness as a big part of getting of the grief process for you, I should say. What have you learned about grief and in ways you can help others that are going through not exactly the same thing? Nobody's gone through exactly the same thing. But when families go through tough times, what have you learned about grief?
What I've learned about grief really is that there's no timetable for grief. I think that, Luke's mom, Jenny, went through a grief process after Luke's accident. That she was grieving the accident, and she and I have a wonderful relationship even today, despite the fact that we're divorced. But what I learned, the two of us loved Luke so much, but we grieved different. I grieved more after Luke passed. She grieved more of the accident, and so the timing was different. There one thing I will tell you is that anyone that thinks they can deal with grief on their own, I think, doing an injustice to how quickly, or how, um, trying to think of the words, that it's hard to put into words what grief can do. It is debilitating. I've heard things like, No, it's like you're at the beach and the waves when one whether one is bigger or smaller, and that is definitely true. The triggers are there all the time. I thought that when I moved to Dallas, I was going to avoid the triggers, and to some degree that is true. But when you breathe, that's a trigger, and so everything, whether it's a baseball field, so much. And so my message to others dealing is to not ever think alone. I lean on my faith, I lean on my very close friends, and I lean on my family. I also learned that the way I dealt with grief, I think was um, I guess in some ways selfish, so focused on my own grief, and I wasn't there enough for Jenny and for my girls. And so I do look at that sometimes with regret, certainly, but also to let parents and let people know, you know, don't shut people out. Everyone's with it differently, and one thing I will share, Kurt, I've written two books. One is called It's in God's Hands. The second book is called Fight Like the Transforming in Faith. If I ever have a third book, the book would be about how I've healed. And certainly one of the ways that I've healed, rid myself of that anger, bitterness, forgiveness you mentioned, and and whether it's exercise in a tennis, a lot of different ways that I have learned how to heal, and certainly one of those is dealing with grief.
Tim, your phone is going in and out a lot, unfortunately, so we're not hearing everything. Is there a way to reposition your phone and see if we can get a better signal? And I'm asking you to do that live on camera. It's very exciting, folks. There you see Tim's hand taking the phone. We've missed a few of the answers, Tim, and I don't want to miss a word of what you're
Shoot.
saying. And
Well,
and
you know
um,
what, Kurt?
yes.
If you want, do you want to redo it?
Oh, I want to ask you that question again for sure. I mean, we're live, so we're not going to redo the whole thing. But I
Yes, of
definitely
course.
want to ask you that question again, Tim, because you talked about your first book, and we've discussed your first book, In God's Hands. That came from a doctor, didn't it, Tim? That line?
That is correct. That is correct. I was Luke had just had a procedure done, and the doctor said that he was out of options, but it was in God's hands. And so that really was the reason why I came up with that title. Yes, absolutely. And then the second book, Fight Like Luke, Transforming Grief into Love, Strength, and Faith, talks a lot about a year in the life of losing a son. And then a third book, if I ever come up with a third book, it would be about how I've healed. And I just know that there are so many different ways to heal, and grief is certainly something that I've experienced wholeheartedly, but I know I'm working through it as much as I can.
What reaction are you getting from those first two books? I know the first one, I've got a copy of it and read it. It's a fascinating book. I haven't read the second. True, got to give you the truth here, Tim. I haven't read that one, but I will. But what reaction are you receiving from those books that you've put out?
I think that what I have sensed and what I've felt is that everyone that reads it, it touches them in some way. Maybe one paragraph, one chapter, one part of the book resonates with something that they've experienced. So, I've had such positive feedback, and I'm so grateful for that.
Tim, I want to talk about your life now, and you've talked about the healing process. I want to get into that a little bit more and some of the things that you're doing in Dallas and how your life has changed just a little bit. So we'll be back to do that in just a moment. I'm visiting with Tim Siegel. Tim is joining us from Dallas, and hopefully we have our phone signal fixed a little bit better. It's sounding better now, Tim. So we'll be back in just a moment as we continue with KCBD Now. My guest, Tim Siegel with Hope for Minds.